Telegram CEO Pavel Durov remains in police custody. Durov, known as Russia's Zuckerberg, was detained in France on Saturday as part of a judicial inquiry involving 12 alleged criminal violations. Here's a look at the list of these violations that was released by the prosecutors. They say that they are accusing him of complicity in selling child porn, complicity in drug trafficking, fraud, and refusing to share information or documents with investigators when required to do so by law. Now, for context, Telegram is a messaging app that has some encryption options. Founded by Durov in 2013, the app was meant to allow for a secure way to communicate outside the reaches of authoritarian regimes. It's now one of the most popular messaging apps in the world, with 800 million users. Durov is a citizen of Russia, France, and the UAE. He's estimated to be worth about $15 billion. A statement from the Paris prosecutor's office said Durov's order was extended for up to 48 hours. After that, authorities must release him or charge him.
There was outrage on X, so much so that French President Emmanuel Macron reacted and posted, quote, "I have seen false information regarding France following the arrest of Pavel Durov. France is deeply committed to freedom of expression and communication, to innovation, and to the spirit of entrepreneurship. It will remain so." The arrest of the president of Telegram on French soil took place as a part of an ongoing judicial investigation. It is in no way a political decision. It is up to the judges to rule on the matter, end quote. Meanwhile, Russian government officials have expressed outrage at the detention. A Kremlin spokesperson called the allegations, quote, "very serious," and argued they require evidence that is just as serious. So, Robbie, I think that if we look at this case, I kind of agree that they need evidence that Pavel knowingly was allowing some kind of pedophilia or human trafficking to happen on Telegram and allowed it to happen and had knowledge of a crime being committed and chose not to. That being said, I don't think anyone expects the CEO of an organization to be aware of all of the encrypted messages that they offer people to exchange on the platform. And it feels like they're trying to make him accountable for crimes he wasn't aware were being committed.
Exactly. And so here in the U.S., what we have, Section 234, is explicitly this: to protect the platform itself from liability for the content on the site. Now, that doesn't mean that they can just allow child pornography. Actually, under U.S. law, the sites are required to take down and report, I think it's called CSAM, child sexual abuse material. They do that. They make Facebook, Twitter, etc., make tons of reports to law enforcement taking down this bad content all the time. Telegram does the exact same thing. But the platform being used for the commission of a crime, go after the criminals. Go after the people trafficking in this kind of stuff. The platform is the platform. I think I said this yesterday, but we don't arrest the CEO of Verizon if, bank robbers are using cell phones to communicate, right? It's not a material to the crime. So that's the approach we've taken in the U.S. Europe is trying to do this totally very different thing because they don't have the First Amendment standing in their way, where European bureaucrats like Terry Breton are trying to enforce this Digital Services Act and trying to force, they're pretending it's about criminal conduct, where there is some, I agree, some legitimate area for government to, require the takedown of, for instance, sexually abusive material. What there should not be a mandate for is the government taking down political dissent, contrarian political content, so-called racist speech or hate speech or whatever it is. That's the kind of stuff that under in the U.S. First Amendment understanding of speech, we allow people to utter the thought that we hate. That's so baked into our DNA, baked into our philosophy, a philosophy that comes out of France and England and the Enlightenment. So to see them turning their back on these principles is just disgusting and engaging in what looks to me like a witch hunt. If they have compelling evidence, fine, present it, that what he personally had a hand in or was turning a blind eye to and had knowledge of fraud or criminal activity or something, fine, then prove it. But if it's just, we don't like this platform because the moderation policies are too light for us, that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I think the main thing about this is that if someone is held accountable for a crime they weren't aware was being committed in their organization, every CEO in America would be held for something criminal happening at some point. And this is something that the wealthy people in the United States of America don't want. So while there's a lot of activists that use Telegram, it's an interesting scenario where I think some of the most powerful people in the country are going to be on the same side of like activists who use Telegram to protest on the floor of Congress and outside of the headquarters of their buildings. Because Telegram has been this app where people feel safe. They can exchange, messages and not be spied on by some big corporation or a corporation like Meta that's cooperated with the American government before. And at the end of the day, that's a lazy investigation. So I remember when I dealt with a stalking situation, my landlord said that I had to go to the police. I didn't think they would be helpful, and I was right. They weren't. But I showed them the emails. I'm like, look, this is the email address. Don't you guys track this somehow and you can figure out where this guy is? No, they did not care at all to try and track that email address. So the idea that crimes should just be handed over by the CEOs of messaging platforms, like here are the guys, here are their addresses, and our police do what? Nothing. They should investigate the crimes. They should say, you know what, we're going to subpoena this. We're going to get access to this hard proof that people are using this platform to commit a crime. This idea that instead everyone should be spied on and all of our conversations should be scraped for any indication a crime's being committed is a ridiculous way to do law enforcement. It's very Orwellian.
Yeah, absolutely. This expectation that we have to be vigilant, we have to be the watchdogs, right? Isn't that for the police? And again, moderators at these companies do cooperate with the police. They have a lot of contact with the police. They have more contact sometimes than we're comfortable with. But they do, report and work with on serious cases of violence, terrorism being organized, sexual abuse. There was, terrorists were on Telegram. They all got kicked off eventually. Actually, I remember reading some study that found that terrorism plots were more likely to be foiled the more welcome the terrorist group was on main social media sites. Because if you're organizing your terrorist plot on Facebook, you're very likely to be caught versus, some dark web messaging system. So it was kind of a perverse finding of this study was that, actually, maybe you should let them operate on the more mainstream places because they're going to get caught more often. So that was very interesting study I read. But look, the main point is we have to fear, I think, this coming crackdown by people at the EU, for one, in terms of what we're allowed to say and discuss on social media. And one of the ways to do that crackdown is to end up holding the people who built the site or own the site or created it responsible for all the content on it. That's why we explicitly prevent that under U.S. law with Section 230. People have to grasp the importance of that law, which Democrats and Republicans routinely inveigh against and talk about getting rid of. It comes in for a lot of abuse, but it's what allows social media to be the free speech space that it is. If I say something on this show, if I said something that was defamatory, you could sue me. You could probably sue The Hill because I'm a full-time employee of The Hill. But let's say we posted the video on YouTube. You couldn't sue YouTube because of Section 230. Or if I said it on Facebook or Twitter, you could sue me. Maybe you can sue my employer. You can't sue the platform. That's exactly what Section 230 says. Sometimes people don't like that because, the platform should be more accountable for speech. But if that was the way it was, then we wouldn't ever be allowed to post at will because there would be too much liability for Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or whoever it is who owns the site. So it's really what allows social media to function the way it is. It's what makes this show possible. It's shows like it. It's what makes social media a place for news and commentary. And we're very lucky to have it in the U.S. because if you look to places like the European Union, they're far more interested in using their looser laws in that on this subject in order to chill speech. We'll be back with more Rising right after this.